One, it is Monday night, so you know what it is. It is the Physicist and Philosopher Hour. I am Wayne Steiger, the Philosopher, and this is Dr. Claudia Albers, the Physicist. How are you, Claudia?
I'm very well, thank you, Wayne.
Good. Did you have a good week?
Yes, I did. I made some interesting discoveries. I was very excited about some of them.
You know, I like hearing that.
Yes.
It's really good.
You know, this is what I live for,
Yes.
What I work for. And that is to discover new things about how the universe really works. Ever since I discovered that just about everything I was taught was wrong, I have to rework everything.
And I just want to say hello to everyone. Thanks all to the moderators and everyone else. It's so good to see you. You just said something, Dr. Albers, that I think most people sometimes fail to keep in mind, and that is we're still discovering the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Gravity.
Yeah, we especially are because we've been lied about how things work so much. And that's because the powers that be wanted to hide the system from us. So they wouldn't allow us to have the understanding that would allow us to understand that it's possible that these objects are here. They wanted us to hear about it and say, but that's impossible. So they taught us all kinds of theories in order to bring about that kind of response from most people.
You know what? As a philosopher, we're going through the Hermetica, Hermes teachings.
Okay.
And what you just said is exactly what has happened to the ancient wisdom, the ancient knowledge, that somehow or another, our ancestors knew about the grand procession of the freaking entire Milky Way. How'd they know that? You can't see that unless you've been around for several thousand years. Copernicus, who contributes the Hermetica, the Hermes philosophy, to discovering that the sun is in fact the center of the solar system.
Yeah, and you know what? They knew about 2,300 years ago that the Earth was spherical. And people nowadays, some people think that it's flat.
Yes,
they know less than the Greeks did 2,300 years ago. And they knew for a fact that it was a sphere.
Yes.
And they did debate it for a while, and by 2,300, they were sure they had measured its circumference. They measured the circumference of the Earth 2,300 years ago.
And I read
it was correct.
Yes. I read to the audience today in our book that we're going through that there were a number of scientists that were burned to the stake. Seriously. They went against the Pope. They went against the church. Yeah. And subsequently they paid with their lives. But science yet prevailed.
Yes, well, it hasn't changed much, to tell you the truth.
No, it hasn't.
Because nowadays, if you go against NASA sets the religion, really, the scientific religion. If you go against them, you are going to get it somehow, if you're a scientist. Basically, I got it. Some get it even worse. Some are killed.
I'm thinking of this movie. It's like, we're going to get you. You just watch it. You dirty rat. We're going to get you.
Yes.
You betrayed the trust.
I'm still waiting for some NASA astronomer to come out and explain why the corona shrinks during the SDO eclipse season. But none of them, they've just kept their mouths shut. They're not saying anything.
Yeah, it's like they have, I don't know. I'll be kind about this. They have their advocates. That's a word I'll use. Advocates.
Well, they have gag orders. That's what they have.
Well, I was trying to be diplomatic. Is that they have their advocates that get out there and have to give the natural spin, and it's crazy. But yet, speaking of this, Dr. Albers, we have evidence of yet things that they never talked about, and in fact have taken amazing steps to make sure we no longer see this. And I want to bring up for our viewing audience a little video from 2007. As you can see, this is Secchi, 2007, May, in fact. And watch this, Claudia. Let me see if I got this. Here we go. So this was when the galactic, what I would call the intergalactic war was taking place. We postulate back in 2014, 2015, that this, in fact, is a weapon of, we don't know what it was actually doing. It was protecting the Earth, because that's the Earth. And of course, we have the blocked out area that this later will be proven to be, I swear, Claudia, it's just my postulation, my theory, that there is something parked out. Now, what everyone is missing about this, Claudia, look what's going on outside here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure you're going to believe me, Wayne, but I have reached the conclusion that what we are looking at, well, there is an object there, that's obvious. There's an object which we call the parachute bomb and so on. Scott has said, and that once, that it looked like one of these toroidal space stations with that kind of parachute thing that may be an energy collector.
Solar cell?
Seems to work with it. But there's something else here, and I think in a way that object there that we're seeing there may be real, but is more of a distraction than anything else. Because I have shown a photograph of a star in the solar system that is so huge that it occupies this whole screen. And it's so strange that it seems to have a piece cut out of it that is exactly that size of that occulting thing they use there, that trapezium.
Right here?
Yes. So I've reached the conclusion that they put that thing there and seems to be digitally added, because you often see light emission right through it, that dark trapezium piece there.
I have some more. That's why I'm bringing up another.
And so I reached the conclusion that they actually put that there so we don't realize what we are seeing. And what we are seeing in the background is actually a star, one of these brown dwarf or black dwarfs or these stars, but it's huge. It's so huge. I've calculated the size in one of my articles. It's something like 15 times the size of the sun, something like that.
That is big. While I'm putting that up.
That's, and I'm not the only one. I don't know if you remember Debbie Blue. She showed these objects from 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of the ones that she showed. But I found a recent image where that trapezium thing was not on the side. It was on the top. I don't even remember which article. It's one of the ones where I talk about the huge star.
I have to go back and take a look. Now, during this time, we had this interesting phenomenon.
Yes, this one is very interesting. That was the
Comet McNaught.
Comet, huge comet.
So
and
this is Venus.
May be one of the objects as it comes into the solar system.
Interesting, because, in this object, so the sun, the sun is here. We can see it's causing a CME. I'm assuming.
Yeah, because don't forget the sun is tiny in these images. The sun is about the same size as it is in the core 2 images. It's tiny. It's a tiny little circle.
It's very small.
To the side. So any object that we see here, that comet is absolutely huge. Of course, it could be that it was a lot closer to the spacecraft. This spacecraft at that time was very close to Earth. This was from 2007. It hadn't moved very far from Earth. So it could be the comet was quite close. But
we could look at, yeah.
I actually think that some of these objects that we're now finding in the sun, as they come in towards the sun, they may look like these comets. So at least some of them stay at the sun, and they are therefore not normal comets. Normal comets are basically like asteroids, pieces of rock that come in a very elliptical orbit. So they discharge what I call the solar capacitor. There's this electrical discharge as it moves through the sun's clouds of ions.
Now here, the reason why it's black, because it overwhelmed the iris of the camera. It was so bright, and it's very interesting.
Well, did they say that's what it was?
That's what they say. I mean, it just...
Either that or they're just blocking our view so we're not seeing something.
Well, I would love to see what's going on behind here, because even if this was close to the camera, it's still a good distance from the sun and from where the comet made its perihelion turn. But still, Claudia, it's huge. I mean, the effect, and I mean, this is some of the interesting things in the early days of SETI. They don't show this anymore.
You know, they have been hiding these things from us for a very long time. So they do what they can. I mean, we have to look very carefully and examine the data very carefully in order to figure out what's true and what's not, because I think they also add things to these images. They can do whatever they want. Don't forget, Wayne. They can add, they can remove, they can paint over, and we've seen signs of them doing this over and over and over again.
Well, 17 years I spent in the post-production industry. This is what we did.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No, I knew that you had worked for NASA in
it was a client of
video
mine.
productions.
Yes, it was. We did a number of high-end animations. That's what I sold. You know, if you remember Star Trek: The Next Generation, that was the post group, and we actually helped in the stop motion of that. Anyway.
Wow.
What I want to talk about here, this one has always fascinated me. So we've got Venus here. I think this is Earth coming in. But Claudia, this is still just a huge, luminous display. I still marvel when I see this.
Yeah, it's a huge tail. This comet must have come in an extremely elliptical orbit.
Look at that. And here's the puny sun. I'm sorry. It's like, you know, you just had this whatever that, I know it was a comet, but I mean, could that have been?
The thing is, that tail seems to be behind the Earth, so it must have been absolutely huge. Absolutely.
So here it comes in, and it's just, look at the brilliance.
You know what? They're not allowing us to see the coma.
Yes, thank you.
The tail is so bright, and we are seeing it. We're not seeing the coma, which is not necessarily that bright. I think they're blocking us from seeing what's really there. That's what I think it is. That's why there's that black line there.
So,
and what this was then was probably one of the stellar cores coming in, and it must have been a huge one.
Well, I was just postulating that they say that Venus was a comet that got caught into the gravitational pull of the sun. Okay. Yes. But even if this was close to the camera, I mean, let's just say it was within, I don't know, let's say 5-6 million miles. I mean, still, it just seems to me like this. I don't know how big McNaught was, but it just,
which other planets do we see here? You said the Earth and?
This is Venus. We know this, but look at what's the reaction to Venus. You know, by the way, we took it in the rear end, where people were saying the effect when Venus was out here and how it was throwing off this arc, that was a distortion of the camera. This right here disproves that, because what you can see happening here, what do you see?
Yeah, it's a plasma loop.
Yeah, it is.
And, I mean, I've been writing about this for years now. Venus is not supposed to have a plasma loop, because it does have it doesn't even have a magnetic field. It doesn't even
it doesn't.
A magnetic field.
Yeah, I mean,
but it has an induced magnetic field which comes from the solar wind. So Venus is still very much like a comet.
So, Claudia, look at this object.
Yes, and there's that one. I noticed that there's an object there, a huge, big object there.
Yeah, and
a lot of these objects were here already, these huge, big ones, in 2007. But what we're seeing there in Venus is not, this is one of the signs, and why I say that Venus is not alone, because Venus itself is not capable of producing a plasma loop. It would need to have plasma on it. What has plasma? It's stars have plasma, not planets. Planets are not hot enough to produce a plasma loop. Nor does Venus have its own magnetic field. In order to have a plasma loop, you need a high magnetic field, like the sun. That's why the sun has plasma loops. So that's what we're seeing there is an object that is with Venus, most likely in orbit around Venus, and it's a stellar core. It's one of these stars.
Interesting.
And it's with Venus, probably very close to Venus, and that's what's producing these effects. I mean, we've been seeing this for years. Venus produces these huge loops.
Well, I just wanted to show, and the fact was that this is not an effect of what we would call a lens flare.
No, we see it in the SRAM images.
Yes.
SRAM images are particles. You cannot have any lens effects in SRAM images. We see these things in SRAM images. So how can it be an optical effect? It cannot.
Look at that. It cannot. And I wish I could blow that up. I just now saw this, Claudia.
Mm-hmm. Look at that.
Look at that. I'm going to have to...
I actually think that just about all the planets in our solar system now have at least one of these large stellar cores that were once stars and now are dead stars. And sometimes I describe them as, more recently I started describing them as brown or black dwarfs.
So I have a 36-inch monitor that I'm looking at here, and Claudia, this is remarkable. You can actually see, this is really very interesting.
And it gets larger than that. I've seen it even larger than what you see it there. I've seen it. It builds to such a size. It's just absolutely huge. It has to be an object with a very high magnetic field and an object that has acquired some coronal plasma from the sun to be able to do that.
Remarkable. And again, I'm looking at this and I'm still saying, okay, let's just say that this puppy was almost on top of the camera. This is still covering just
it's not, Wayne, because it's behind Venus.
I know. So we're talking, what, millions of miles here?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You tell me that they're not telling us what it's...
They're not telling us what's going on in the solar system. Sometimes I'm surprised by what I'm finding. It's like I have to stop and really think to start to accept the enormity of what is going on in our solar system, the size of the objects, the number of objects. It boggles your mind sometimes, even though I've been looking at this for years. You know, just the thought of there's an object that's 7 times the size of the sun right next to the sun.
It's amazing. I have more I'm going to show Claudia while I'm doing this. So,
okay.
You know, it just bears out the whole point that they're not telling us.
No, they're not telling us. They tell us a little bit, hoping that now that we know that something's going on, I think they keep telling us a little bit, like say, oh, look at these little objects in the sun's corona. Yeah, well, that's very interesting. That's very good. But the one thing they don't want us to know about is about the size of some of them.
I think you're going to love this one. This is the SRAM, excuse me, I think I may have. So here it comes. I'm going to do the monkeys. Here we come. So it's
what is that?
I know, that's that Venus. I mean,
that Venus again?
Yeah, it's and watch what happens here. I'm just going to let it play the first time through real time so you can see it. Boom!
My goodness, Venus is having CMEs.
Yeah, I mean, so
look at the size of that plasma loop.
Look at this. I mean, it looks to me like a star.
It does.
And
it doesn't look like a planet at all, because what we see is not actually Venus. It's the object that's with Venus, possibly much, much larger than Venus. And it seems to be quite active.
You know what that reminds me of? This reminds me of the true compass, north, south, east, west.
Yes, it does.
Doesn't it? So watch this when it starts coming in. The Birkeland current's going crazy on this.
Yeah, it looks like two objects that suddenly separated.
Yes. So let's
look at that, because you see two vertical lines.
Claudia, we just caught the comet. Look at here.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, did you just see that? Whoa.
There's a plasma loop coming from there.
Let's go back.
That tells you it's not a comet.
Look at
that's
this.
Not a comet. You see, that's one of these objects coming in.
Look at that.
Look at that. So that's another one of these stars.
Wow.
Look at, you see, that's what I thought, that it's one of these objects.
I'm trying to catch the frame on here. I'm going to have to do a frame.
And then there's this huge big circle behind Venus. That's another object.
Yes.
It's huge.
Look at this. Look at what it's actually doing. Wow. Look at it, almost like its feet. This is really interesting.
Because there's a reaction at its surface. Some kind of reaction with the comet tail as well.
Yeah. Look at that.
Wow, look at the size of that comet. Oh my.
Look what it's doing. You
see, and that object's reacting to what the comet's doing as well. This is unbelievable. Well, that object that was Venus.
And now,
oh my goodness.
Look at that. And then it just overwhelms. Wow.
Look, the sun's reacting.
It's, I think it just said.
I mean, the sun is tiny compared with these objects, except the sun still has a lot of energy.
That is just incredible.
And these objects basically are dead.
Yeah.
They don't generate energy anymore, but they cause the sun to react to their presence because they're so huge. I mean, they still have some life in them. They're just not enough to operate as living stars, but they still have some. They still generate some gravity. They possibly don't generate enough of an electric field to emit visible light, but they most likely emit infrared.
This is the one that has always fascinated me. I didn't know if it was the satellite that was going bonkers. You can really see whatever this was. I don't think this is actually the sun. I've looked at this, and I could be. But
no, that doesn't look like the sun at all.
Looks like
the sun can't do that.
I didn't think it could do that either. And
I mean, this thing is shifting from pointing upwards to pointing downwards. That's not the sun.
look at that. I swear.
That's one of these objects. Oh, look at that. The camera view is
Trying. It's
rotating.
yeah. Look at that. Now that's the one I wanted to stop on. What the hell is that? I mean,
Yeah, that's
sorry.
that's not normal.
It's like, is that plasma?
It would be plasma,
Okay.
and it looks like it's very energetic plasma. It's emitting a lot of visible light, because this is what we see here is visible light. And do you see all these spots of light?
Yeah.
And what is this? These have to be particles that are emitting
Hey,
light.
Dr. Albers.
Did I just hear your name?
Yeah, that's Scott.
Oh, I thought
I said to go to my latest video. Show him what we captured going through the sun's corona.
Oh, okay.
My latest video halfway through it.
Okay, Scott says that we should show what he's got in his latest video. He sees
Okay.
an object moving through the corona.
All right. Now, this is the one I stopped on. So this is what's so strange to me.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I think is what space is. It's not when we get these blue, and this clearly shows whatever that object is or what's happening. Sometimes it makes me think that we're looking at two different realities.
Because what we are seeing is not background stars, Wayne. Now, I've discovered that these spots actually sometimes appear in front of objects as they move across. Because these spots are actually part of the debris that these objects leave behind, because they shed their outer layers of material. And when they arrive in the sun's corona, they're usually still shedding a lot of material. So they fill the whole of space around the sun with this material, which is low in energy. And because it's low in energy, whatever it can gather from the solar wind has more energy than it does, and it causes it to heat up and ionize, and then it emits light. That's why we have this is all debris around the sun that these objects are leaving. And then it spreads out through the solar system. That's what started entering our atmosphere in 1850. That's what led to the noctilucent clouds. This is what it is. This shows that an object has just perhaps arrived and has just shed a whole lot of debris. And that's what we're seeing here. It's the pieces of debris. This debris will turn into asteroids.
Okay, that's interesting. And this is my point. You can see exactly what I'm talking about. This is almost like, I don't know, dust. I mean, but you can definitely see these void pockets.
They come in different sizes. There's dust-sized particles, and then there are much larger particles, huge asteroid-sized particles. Some may be as large as a small moon.
Interesting.
Different sizes.
I just saw something as that was coming. Look at this.
Yeah, you can see it's coming off an object.
Look at the waves
everywhere. Yeah.
And that's what my mind is interpreting, that we're seeing waves. But
yeah, we are, because there does seem to be a wavelength there.
Now, this is why I say, and you, as we're observing, that this couldn't be the sun here, because look at this. What is this? Right. A sprout?
Exactly. This is an object that's just off the field of view on the left-hand side. Most likely one of the newest arrival at the sun. It may even have been that comet, or it may have been the one previous to that comet. But it's shedding a whole lot of material. Look at
that.
Around. Exactly. Look at it. It's all there.
You see, this is why we get to do Monday nights.
Yes.
And we won't continue to keep people, but oh man, I can't. Anyway, well, I have some of your papers pulled up, Dr. Albers.
That's good. And I should say hello to the MFA people. I know that stuff always shows. Hello, MFA members. And they love hearing about what we talk about, which is very interesting.
Welcome all of them.
The truth.
So I pulled up this one, Dr. Albers, because this so happens to be something that many of us out here in the Intermountain West have been suffering from, is heat. We've had now 12 days of 90 plus degrees. We've set in the last 8 days 7 records. And what gets me about these records, which has kind of I've really been thinking about this. Many of these records were only broken in 2000 and 2012. We're hitting, for instance, they told us tonight, we will hit the all-time record high ever kept for the month of September.
Oh, so, my goodness.
It is hot here. It is. And Saturday, we had 4% humidity. 4%. So I saw this and I thought, how timely, talking about heat and gravitational photon energy.
Yeah. I wrote this article. I had to do a whole lot of stuff in order to do one final article. And I had to break it up into different parts. And this is the heat and photon energy part. Because previously I said that gravitational energy, which is a photon inside a particle, and
I can pull that article if you want me. I can pull that up.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
So I said it's about the gravitational energy, which is a photon inside a particle, which is what generates the gravitational field. The gravitational field comes from the photon inside a particle. And, I just realized why it is a wave, because the photon, light, is a wave. But here I'm just trying to separate the two forms of energy, because like I said before, all energy is photons, but it exists in different forms. It's the free photon and then the photon within particles. And even the photon within particles exists in two forms. It's the gravitational part and the heat part. The gravitational part generates the gravitational field. The heat causes the particle to vibrate. The more heat, the more the particle will vibrate. So, and it's a gaseous particle. It will move at higher speeds if its heat increases. So here I go back to the previous one. I think we went through it last week. I'm not sure anymore. Yes, but I show, this is the solar capacitor. So the sun is at the center, and then it has clouds. It's nebula clouds that contain ions. The ions are produced in the sun's corona. They ejected outwards, and they form the solar wind. And then these particles are ejected away from the sun, mainly along the equator. That's why they're toroidal clouds, like the rings of Saturn. The rings of Saturn are the same thing, because Saturn is a star. But the sun has its own rings, but a huge ring structure in the form of toroidal clouds. So the first one has the heaviest or the densest ions, and that is nickel and ions. And then we'd get other clouds as we go on. The furthest cloud would contain the lightest elements from hydrogen to sulfur, and it goes out to beyond Neptune, beyond Pluto probably. And then, but I never mentioned before that there must be electron clouds between the ion clouds. That's what I added to this particular diagram. The blue circles are the electron clouds. And here I explain about how this is about how atoms work, because celestial systems are basically super atoms, basically.
Okay.
So whatever we see on the microscopic level, we're going to see on the macroscopic, in other words, in astronomical systems.
As above, so below.
Yes, that's good. And
Thank
so here I explain how, first of all, on the left, the top diagram is how a photon contains particles inside it, but a photon has no mass and the particles inside it have no mass, but they have charge. And then when the photon moves through a region of high electric field, the particles are split apart, come out from within the photon. And at that time, the photon, instead of being above the particles, encompassing the particles, goes inside the particles. And now we have a confined photon, and it gives the particles mass. The particles already have charge within the photon. They retain the charge, they gain mass, and they acquire a gravitational field. Both come from the photon. So the photon energy goes into the mass and into the gravitational field. Both are associated with gravity because both mass and that energy go into then producing what's called the gravitational interaction between particles.
Claudia, I am just having an amazing time right here. So while you were talking, I now can understand how God can give birth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Hermes taught that God is, well, in better term, he would be asexual, androgynous. But you just showed me how birth is given by thought.
Mm.
And when you said this, so you have two elements now, two particles that have separated, that were one.
Yeah.
And then down here, this is how the two become one once again.
That's right. So what we have down there is an hydrogen atom, and an hydrogen atom is formed because the gravitational interaction pushes the proton and the electron apart.
Yeah.
And so it keeps them apart. That's gravity. It's repulsive between protons and electrons. And in the beginning, I called this interaction the charge separation interaction, because I knew there had to be one in order for us to have the structure we have in the universe. It was only later that I figured out that this interaction is actually gravity. This is part of the gravitational interaction. But when there's not enough gravitational energy inside the proton and the electron, they come together, because then the electrostatic interaction causes them to come together and they become a neutron.
So could we say in another term that what we're seeing here would be a law of cohesion?
Yes, I mean, don't forget, if we didn't have the gravitational interaction, all particles in the universe would become neutrons. Everything would be neutral, and there would be no life. We cannot have life.
Good point. Ooh, everything would become neutral.
Yes.
Wow.
You see, all the reactions that are going on in our bodies are chemical reactions and are as a result of electrons being outside the nucleus of an atom and being negatively charged whilst the nucleus is positively charged. If the atoms collapse and become neutral, there's no life, there's no structure, nothing happens. There's no stars, no
That is
planets,
profound.
no lightning, nothing.
You see, this is why, folks, we have the physicist and philosopher, because what I hear you saying, Dr. Albers, I am seeing in the construct of what we would define as the one, the source of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're doing a fantastic job of defining the mind of God.
That's right. I mean, I came across this by simply observing the stellar course and what they were doing with the sun. And I started thinking about it. And then I realized that everything's coming out of light. And that confirms what it says in the Bible, that God is light. And in the beginning, he said that let there be light. He created light, and out of light came everything, the whole universe.
Yeah, you have, I always love it. It's proton.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It's not negatron, it's proton.
That's right.
And then you get the electron, which is the elected.
Okay, very good. That's one way of remembering which is which.
Hey, listen, whatever works for you, right?
Yeah, of course. You must make it work for the way your own mind will understand it the best.
But it's very easy because it's so transcendent that it goes back and forth. I can see it easily. Hermes says that when a soul is born, that you can tell what that soul is going to be. And if the soul has a translucent, transparent coat, that person is going to be intelligent. They will be one who will seek the spiritual path. If it is cloudy and dense, that person most likely will be what we would call ignorant and also not interested in the spiritual or intelligence. Just merely.
That's interesting.
It is very.
To tell you the truth, I think that all children, unless they are brain damaged, are born geniuses. And it is the environment and often the school system that takes it out of them.
Well, I know for myself, the problem I had in school, particularly in the early years, was that they could not keep up. I was bored. When you begin to see, math became very easy. Anyway, I think it is.
Yeah, I think all children have special gifts in different fields. Like some are artistically inclined, some are language inclined, some are scientifically inclined, but they all have amazing abilities. It's just the environment they then end up in, it often stifles that spark in them, which is very sad. But I have seen what good teaching can do for students. And that is, if you start believing they can do it, they absorb that and they start doing better.
Well, I think that holds true even for adults.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone needs to be encouraged and needs to know that they can do things, they can understand. Often it's our belief that we cannot do it. That's the only thing that stops us from going forward.
I love this. And Dr. Albers, what I was teaching today at noon was the fact that the Enlightenment period, the period of Alexandria, Florence, was that the common belief was that philosophy, religion, science were all to be studied together. That there was to be no division, but it was the ability to communicate in all aspects of the human experience. Mm-hmm. And that's why I enjoy Monday nights, because this is an opportunity for where I see philosophy and science walking hand in hand.
That's good.
So.
Yeah. So here I'm just explaining why we have only certain allowed orbits within atoms. And it has to do with the fact that photons are quantized. And therefore they can only, and they are wave, quantized and a wave. And that means that you can only make that wave connect properly at certain orbits. Of course, I have now in my latest article, I have an even better explanation, and that is because the photon is a wave, it generates a gravitational field, which is in the form of a wave as well. And that means that there are regions where the gravitational field is repulsive. It's attractive in the center, and there's a region of repulsive, and then another region of it. It's like a circular diffraction effect that you get. It's a standing wave. It's in my latest article. I sent it to you.
Okay.
But here I start to talk about that, about the fact that a photon is a wave, and so it has a wavelength, and for that wavelength you can only have certain orbits where the wavelength fits properly around that circumference.
So could we apply this principle then? And when we talked about Jupiter, I was thinking about the moons that it has, that a couple of them now are in retrograde to all the other moons. So I'm seeing that if we were looking at this as a wave, that you could actually insulate an object that would go counter to the other objects around it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just doing this on the fly as I'm reading.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how electrons orbit around the nucleus. I don't think anyone has ever seen an electron. So we have basically theories about how they do it. Most people nowadays, most of physics thinks of electrons as not particles like we see planets, but more like a cloud of energy.
Well, it does boggle my mind, Claudia, as to how you can actually have in such a tight, condensed area, which I'm talking, with Jupiter, is that you've got these objects that are going in retrograde opposite of that. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, that is very strange. And I think I've said this before, because if objects have been in the solar system for a long time, they may have started out in very strange orbits, but over the years, they sort of adopt to the same type of rotation as all other objects. So the fact that we have objects that are retrograde, that means that they are newly acquired moons.
Yeah.
They have not been in the solar system for a long time. They have just been captured by Jupiter. And they came in such a way that they were captured in a retrograde orbit. I mean, we have seen some objects out there in the Kuiper Belt that are at huge inclinations. I think I wrote an article about that. I think it was Niku.
Yes.
And it was actually in a retrograde orbit. So
go ahead.
That meant it's a newly acquired object by the sun. The same thing will happen with Jupiter. But we have so many of these stellar cores in the solar system that I would think that every planet in the solar system, even though Jupiter is not really a planet, it's a star. So Earth probably has acquired one of these large stellar cores. It's probably in orbit around our planet. And Jupiter has probably acquired several, maybe Saturn. And then there are the smaller ones, which they actually tell us are there. And these would be the planetary cores, objects that were once living planets orbiting the largest stellar cores, and have now become moons to Jupiter. There are lots of them. They're newly acquired, and they come in all sorts of different directions. These objects don't obey gravitational laws like solar system objects do, but they do gain energy and eventually will start obeying some gravitational law, although they will seem to almost be as if they have very little mass when they are enormous, sometimes enormous objects.
Yeah, and that's what I just drew here. So I'm taking on the XYZ axis that on the X plane, which I would say would be our Kuiper belt, the Oort cloud. So we know that in essence, it's rotating in one direction, and it's typically, if we looked on the ecliptic, it would be kind of basically on the flat plane, right?
Yeah.
So when we look at the y-axis, that represents to me in my mind another law of gravity or motion here that is counter to the x-plane that we have here. So are we seeing two different systems interacting with one another?
The thing is, what I've discovered is that the Planet X system is a huge system. It's about 20,000 times larger than the solar system.
Wow, now that would answer a lot, Dr. Al.
Yeah, that's right. It encompasses the whole of the solar system. The solar system is inside it. The Planet X system is basically the local interstellar cloud we are in.
That is forward thinking.
So they're coming in from all directions.
Yeah.
Because the solar system is inside it.
Wow. So basically, this is the Planet X system, right?
And you know this thing about the Oort cloud that's supposed to be out there?
Right.
Well, the Oort cloud is part of the Planet X system. That's where all the comets are coming from.
Could it be postulated that the Planet X system itself would be the remains of the Sagittarius dwarfed ecliptical galaxy?
Yeah, well, it's a possibility, but we cannot say for sure. What we do know is that it's a dead system. It's a system of dead stars. And I don't know when.
That would make it old.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened. It could be that it came across one or a system from outside the galaxy entered the system and then destroyed all the star systems in a certain region and assimilated them all together in a cloud within, or it formed a cloud, a region in the galaxy where all the stars are dead.
Wow.
Because when one dies, it's going to destroy another one next to it.
You've given me a lot of thought in here, because if we take the term through antiquity that our forefathers and ancestors saw, they viewed the heavens with the disastrous effects of what they witnessed, called the destroyer. Why would it not be part of a system that has, as you said, it's a dead system, but it would in fact be a destroyer system?
It's a destroyer system. In fact, I've written an article about that. That's my article 244, saying the Planet X system is the destroyer system. I'm not sure anymore what I use, but it's the system, a destructive system, or the system of destruction, the destroyer system, something like that. Because that's what it does. Wherever it goes, wherever the members of the system, whenever they reach another star system that is still living, they will go into that star system, or they start invading it, and they start absorbing its energy until everything there is dead as well. And it becomes absorbed into the Planet X system.
Okay.
So basically, our sun has recently entered this section of the galaxy. It hasn't been long ago. It's still at the beginning of it, but it encompasses the solar system all around.
I gotta tell you, Dr. Albers, you have just expanded my mind immensely. Wow. The hour is already come and gone. I mean, this is...
What? Really?
It has. It's almost 8 o'clock.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't even explain about that art.
Oh, and the people are just loving it. I mean, it's... Okay. You have really given me a lot of thought. I mean, it's... To think that we would be actually inside of Planet X, a system. Could we make
And not only that, I've been thinking that the sun, when it's strong, it actually keeps these objects from a lot of these objects from entering into the solar system. As the sun gets weaker, more and more of them come in.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I am reading more and more articles postulating that what we're discovering with the sun is it's outstripping what we even thought 10 years ago. And I think that it will not be that far along, Dr. Albers, and they're going to say, well, our star is a lot older than what they have thought.
I'm not sure what they're going to say, but I doubt that they will ever tell the public the truth.
Well, you know, sadly, history would back you up on that. Definitely.
Yeah.
So
it's very sad, but we're living in a world where it's basically built on lies.
it is. In fact, I was writing in here that we live in a world of fake illusion. And I think next week we can maybe talk on the moon. I mean, there's just a lot of people that are waking up to that, you know, there's something ain't right there.
Yes, there's a lot that's not right there.
It always amazes me when I see footage out in the field, particularly when they're doing, you know, high production shoots, and they shoot the moon. And when you stop the footage and you look at the moon, it's very odd because you can't find a picture that would have the same look. Each time it has a different look to it. And
yes, because I don't think that we're seeing the real moon anymore. We're seeing a simulation of the moon in our skies, not the real moon. But what's very strange is even in the 1970s, when everyone was interested in the moon and space travel, why didn't just put a satellite in orbit around the moon so that we could see what was going on there? Because if the moon was empty, there was nothing to hide from us. What's the problem? I'm sure everybody would pay to watch the moon.
Dr. Albers, I have a harebrained theory, but I think the moon potentially could be a modern, what we would consider a gas station. I mean, it has H3 all over it. You know, which is, they say that's the element for the next generation of engines. I happen to think it's hollow. I happen to think it's also occupied, but that's just my belief.
Well, it probably is. I just, through my new understanding of gravity, I discovered that most planets will have a hollow shell within them somewhere.
You know what? I'm writing this down, and I'll send this to you. I'd like to do a show on gravity. It's still one of the most complexing, how should we say, enigmatic concepts. It doesn't seem to work. In fact, I was reading an article, and the guy said in the article, there's not enough gravity to keep the universe together.
Yeah, I know they say that, but that's...
They say that, don't they? And I'm going...
It's absolute nonsense. They don't even understand how gravity works. They don't understand what gravity is. They don't even understand that gravity is repulsive as well as attractive. It's just unbelievable, the ideas that... I mean, they say that everything's about gravitational collapse. Everything in the universe is due to gravitational collapse. But we have the stellar cores in our solar system that are old stars that are solid, that have cores. And they dark and cold. And they're not emitting light. And they didn't collapse into black holes. How is that possible? If huge stars always turn into black holes.
Well, yeah, I mean,
that tells you that that wipes out just about all astrophysical theory. If they only looked at the sun and what is there, that's why they don't do it.
Well, I dare say that in the near future, and I mean near future, we're going to see new laws postulated because the old ones don't work. Talking in your profession.
Oh, in my profession?
Yes, in physics.
I don't know, Wayne. I've actually given up on my profession because...
Well, actually, you shouldn't, because you are actually the tip of the spear of the new revolution. I think that is going to listen. We've seen it in science before. There seems to be a renaissance that takes place. I think, Claudia, you're just the beginning of a new renaissance of free thinkers. Seriously,
well, I hope so.
Well, you know,
but I don't see how any physicist would come out and agree with me and say, oh, we're going to look at the observations now and we're going to say, yeah, these objects are there. I don't think
they couldn't be biased or have
do that.
No, well, let me just tell you this. The ones that still have integrity would probably be more fearful of them losing their job, but I have a sense that you have far more proponents than what maybe appeared. That's just
well, maybe there are people who do listen and agree, but they're not saying anything.
Well, we're saying it here.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, we are. And I love it.
That's good.
Well, okay. Our hours just come in and go.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly it went. I mean, we were just describing how the universe works, and
we were just getting into that. Well,
but I think it's a good idea to have a show on gravity, and what I've discovered that it's a standing wave. You know, a wave is like the wave of the ocean has crests and troughs. But gravity is a standing wave, which means it's high in the middle, it's a peak, and then it goes down, it becomes negative around the peak, and then it has another high. That means in the low, it creates a shell inside a planet and different shells going all along. That's why you have stable orbits and unstable orbits. If an object goes into a region of an unstable orbit, it will be pushed towards one of the areas where gravity is attractive. And that's why all atoms and all star systems have both allowed and forbidden regions, allowed orbits or allowed energy levels and forbidden energy levels.
I'll pull up the graphic.
All due to gravity, because it's a wave. It's a standing wave.
And if a planet can fold gravity as it's moving through, then you would naturally have on the curve exactly that. You would have a positive point and a negative point, which would then affect the pull or the repulsion, right?
That's right. So if you go into the Earth, if you dig down, you feel attraction towards the center of the Earth, and then you hit the spot where gravity reverses.
Yeah.
In other words, you get pushed outwards now. So what happens? That produces a gap in the matter. It produces a hollow.
And you know what? Okay, we've got to do a show on this because, yeah. All right. Fascinating. Did Scott get the other T-shirts for the...
So we never got around to Scott's video either. Because
yes, we got to get that.
Yeah, we didn't get time. But he keeps on discovering these objects in the sun's corona. So I think people should go and watch Scott's latest video. He also talks a bit about the Sunspot Observatory, how they said they would reopen it and this and that. It's all lies.
We need to stick to what we know, not what they know, what we know, and proceed from that point. And I just, I'm like you. I'm going, sure. Yeah. Yep. All right. Check out over that. We'll be back here next Monday night. And what do you have going on, Claudia, this week?
I haven't actually thought about it. I'm going to write another article on gravity.
Oh,
Yeah, because I want to make one just on gravity now. The one that I wrote is at the end where I show gravity waves, and I show where the idea came from. It's actually, it came from observing the tidal event that was associated with Hurricane Florence. How you get an area where you have a high tide and an area where you had ocean recession. I actually measured. And when I saw that, I realized that there had to be an increase in gravity at that point, where there's the ocean recession, and a decrease at the point where the tide is higher. So that meant immediately that gravity is a wave, because it goes high, it goes low gravity, high gravity. That's a wave.
It is. I can see that. I can see that. All right, folks.
Yeah.
We're going to get into it next week. Have your questions. We'd love to send them to Dr. Albers. If they're on gravity, then let's do it. All right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Y'all be good to yourselves. We'll see you next.
Okay, folks. Hey, listen, this is Scott from Planet X News. I wanted to share this live stream with Wayne and Dr. Albers. I also wanted to get into real quick showing this this capture from the other day. Wayne was going to show it. They just ran out of time. I'm going to go ahead and put it up here on the screen. I hope all of you can see me. Or excuse me, if you could all see the video footage. And hopefully you could all hear me. So if any of you guys can just give me a thumbs up in the live chat, let me know that you could hear me. The piece of information that we're looking at right here, just let me turn down my cell phone here real quick. This was coming from the SDO on the 14th of September. And I want all of you to pay very close attention to this area right over here where I'm circling with my cursor. I'm going to go ahead and let this loop back and forth. And on the 14th at a little after 2300 hours, you're going to see an object break through the sun's corona right over here. And it's clear as a bell. We've seen this before. We captured it. I think it was back in March of 2017. We recorded another large spherical object, much, much bigger than the planet Jupiter. And it was blazing right through the corona, right down here where I'm circling my cursor. You know, it's the videos out there in on my YouTube channel, but I have over 1,600 videos of evidence. So I'm going to go ahead and dig that up, and we're going to compare both of those videos here within the next week. But if you watch up here in this area, you will see this object passing through. It's moving at such a high rate of speed that it actually disturbs the sun's outer corona. So watch very carefully. I'll let it loop back and forth. And that's just evidence right there. So you guys can all hear me, yeah? Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I wanted to share this live stream with Dr. Albers and Wayne. Like I do every Tuesday night, they hold their live stream on Monday night on Wayne's channel. And Dr. Albers has been working very, very hard on trying to understand what is happening, how our solar system got to where it's at right now. And, you know, her current theory, something that she's been working on for quite a while, is starting to answer very serious questions about what's happening. Where do these objects come from? You know, folks, we just have to face one thing. Okay, we are just a tiny little solar system in a galaxy that you just can't even fathom the size of it. So in order for us to come in contact with other stellar objects, suns, other stars, moons, planets, I mean, it's inevitable. Eventually, it's going to happen. So, there's going to be a lot of people out there that, they just tell you, no, that's impossible. No, that's impossible. But if you take a look at the big picture, you can seriously see the holes in their science. Is there a possibility that our small solar system has entered into this massive Planet X system? I mean, could we have been in this system now for thousands of years? If you think back, and if you've done your homework and your research, as long as man has been on this earth, they've been recording these events. Gil Broussard brought it all the way back 6,000 years ago in some ancient Chinese writings. And the Chinese language and alphabet hasn't changed in all of that time. So it was very easy to translate. And they talk about similar occurrences. So even way back then, people were watching the sky, watching outer space from this planet. So if you have the thought in your mind that there's no way that our solar system can come in contact with other stellar objects within our galaxy and this universe, wow, man, you really, really have your head in the sand. Folks, they have been investigating this and talking about this now. I believe it's over 35 years. And the time is now here. The time is coming upon us quite quickly. And when I mean the time is here, we're in the beginning phases of all of this. I do believe that for any of us out there that are in our 40s and 50s, we're probably going to live through a good bit of the change that is now occurring on this planet. And it's going to be pretty strange. It's going to be pretty scary. But like I say, folks, knowledge is power. If you understand it, then maybe you're not so afraid of it. I've been studying this now for so long, so many years. I'm no longer afraid of it, but more concerned than anything. I feel that Dr. Albers and I were just not reaching enough people because of the censorship and the shadow banning on all of this social media. It's very hard to reach people, and that's where all of you come in, forming the network of information worldwide. But even then, it's still very, very hard. But for all of you that are watching on a computer monitor, you should be able to see that object pass right through the corona. It's not super clear. I tried to get a higher definition. The higher definition wasn't the problem. It just almost passes, it does pass right outside of the screen. It's so far over out of the camera's view, but it just caught my eye. And as I looked at it, I'm like, I've seen that before many, many times. And it's been captured on the Solar Dynamics Observatory for quite some time. Just watch carefully in the upper corner. You'll definitely see it. Now, on the same day, I'm going to go ahead and jump out of here. And on the same day, I'm going to move over here to some screenshots. this was actually a little earlier on the same day, September 14th. And I'm going to just blow this up a little bit. You can see this is on the Solar Dynamics Observatory, again, the SDO. The same day that we were viewing that object breaking through the corona by itself. Hours earlier, I was able to capture this, and you could see one smaller object here, pretty clear, another one here, and another one here. And this is a still photograph, and I'll zoom in and you could see them. Okay, this one is either smaller or further back. These two are definitely closer to the camera. I have these in a couple of different colors, angstroms of light. And again, you can see one here, and one here. So, was there a cluster of some sort passing by the sun? I would say so. Again, one here, here, and here. And in this angstrom of light, you can see another anomaly a little further down. Right here. Folks, you just have to train your eyes on these types of photographs. I've been looking at them for so long, so many years. I can pick these abnormalities out in these photographs instantaneously because I know what is supposed to be there and I know what should not be there. And as of this picture here, that object there, and there, they should definitely not be there. Bingo. 1, 2, 3. Same photograph, just different angstrom of light on the SDO. And then we're going to move to another photograph. And this one, I was able to get it in a little bit of a higher definition. And this was 3 days later. I'm going to go ahead and just blow this up here. This was 3 days later. And once again, I was going through some of the SDO footage. I try to keep up with it as it is updating itself. So I don't wait a day or two. I get right in there and I try to find it. And bingo, here we go again. And this is the SDO composite image from 9/17. And this object, I watched it form right there as it was coming through the sun's corona. And you can see right here, it's making an actual plasma connection with the sun. This object got close enough where this plasma connection occurred. And I've showed this before many, many times, going back through 2017 and some in the beginning of this year in 2018. And actually a much larger object. So if you take a look at the size of the sun, judging on the size of that object definitely is bigger than the planet Jupiter. So that is a massive object compared to the size of the sun. So I think the sun is 865,000 miles across, from one end to the other in diameter. So that's pretty damn big. And if you see, we're looking at, a portion of the sun here on the bottom. And if you compare that to the size of this object, I'll zoom in for you. I mean, you can't really get that much clearer with the public access of information that they give us. Every now and then they slip up. But I think those days are pretty much over. They've been cleaning up the video footage on all of the public access NASA websites that monitor the sun. They've been cleaning it up. They took the majority of the public access away from SOHO, so we really can't see what's happening on the C2 and C3 coronagraphs. I think it's all automated video. And they take out anything that they know that we're going to capture now because we've shown them the tools that we're using to uncover this information. So It is what it is, and eventually, folks, everything will be gone. Everything. You know, I haven't been on YouTube that much as of lately because I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but, you know, over the course of these first 9 months in 2018, Planet X News has put on 26,000 new subscribers. 26,000. So you think that putting on that many new subscribers in a period of 9 months will naturally, just by sheer numbers, the laws of probability, your video counts. More people would be watching your videos. Well, they've been killing our channel since 2017 because hundreds of thousands of people were watching my videos. They were seeing the discoveries and they started to wake up. And now people around the world are researching and looking up to the skies. So they definitely don't want me speaking in your ear. That's why our new MFA Media Group website, it is almost finished. We are currently just waiting for some tweaking with our Vimeo platform. And Vimeo built us our own live streaming and video program for our website. So it's not like you're going to Vimeo or YouTube. It's going to be, very similar. We'll be able to live stream from our website. Our videos will be right there accessible on our website. We're going to have news from around the world. And I'm going to be bringing on, as best I can, other truthers out there around the world that are coming up with some fantastic information that we all really need to know. And they get censored. So if they want to take the time and hold down a channel on our website, they'll be able to do it. And they won't be censored. I know Dutch Sense is having a lot of problems right now with what's happening with him and his YouTube channel. He's tried other, live stream venues and they just keep on, trying to bust him up. But we're going to be able to give these other folks a channel where they can show their research. They can talk about what they're finding and not be censored. Not be shadow banned. There's nothing that I hate more. We know the truth is out there, and there are millions of us now, millions, who are all striving for that real truth. Because so much of our lives now have become completely fake. The sun, the sky, the clouds, our weather, the food we eat, the people that we've become. But we do have the opportunity to change all of that. But it's going to be one hell of a fight. So the question is, are you up for that fight? Or you're just going to lay down and submit. And that's it. So folks, you can clearly see there are many objects out there near our sun. They are creating issues, once again, as I've said before. They're creating issues with our sun, which in turn will create issues with our planet. We are not that far away from our sun, 93 million miles. As big as our sun is, and as small as our planet is, we're always going to be in the path of its power. And now, It seems that it has some other partners. So we're actually in the path of their energy. Now, I'm not saying that any of these objects are going to smash into the Earth. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But understanding that the Earth is now being exposed to other stellar elements that we've never been exposed to before, at least not in any of our lifetimes. The possibilities of thousands and thousands of years ago, those are probably very high possibilities. But I believe we're going to be entering some very interesting times in the course of the rest of all of your lives. It's mind-boggling at times. I never thought in a million years that this is what I would be doing with my life on this planet. Very interesting times, folks. So hopefully within the next week, we'll be kicking off our new MFA Media Group website, Uncensored News, and we're going to be modifying some things as I get used to the website, learning how to play with all of the bells and whistles. And, I'm not leaving Planet X News out there. Planet X News is always going to be there. This is just going to give us a little bit more of a platform to share our information uncensored. I will always continue to upload the information right here. So, a few thousand of you guys can see it. Whoever YouTube lets see it. But this much is true. They're censoring me all over the world. They've been doing it since the beginning of 2017. It will continue to get worse unless we change gears. That's where our website with MFA Media Group is going to come into play. The only thing they could do at that point, folks, is shut the internet off. That's it. We're fully funded, and we're ready to rock and roll. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream. These photographs are up on the Planet X News Facebook page if any of you want to check them out. I put them up there yesterday. And feel free to share them with your friends and family members. Ladies and gentlemen, please be safe out there and make sure you stay tuned. Take care.